Hi, guys. So today's episode is a two-parter with my very first guest. So get ready for part one of two. Hi, everyone. I am so excited for today's episode because this is my first guest on the Abiding in Him podcast. And I had to do the first and the best. So the first guest I have is my father, Pastor Che Cowan.
Hey, everybody.
Who is a pastor at Life Church in Victorville. Thank you so much for coming, Daddy.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so glad that you started this, first of all. So proud of you. It's
Thank
so
you.
amazing that you're doing this. And glad to be the first guest. I know
Mhm.
this episode is going to blow up.
Oh, yeah, it is going to blow up because this is actually a highly anticipated event. The amount of people who were like, "Ooh, I would love for you and your dad to have a conversation." Like, also just like him being on a podcast. Have you been on a podcast before?
Yeah, but nothing of this magnitude.
You're funny. And also, since you start things and then you make it better, my studio is my room. So the first guests that I could even have had to be people that I'm comfortable with having in my room. So, this is just perfect. Yeah, and I mean, thanks for making the trip down to LA from Victorville.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and Life Church, you've been there for 5 years now.
Yeah, four years and about 4 months. So yeah,
And
this is
y'all just had an anniversary.
just had an anniversary this past week, which was amazing. Did a great job. The staff did a great job. Volunteers did a great job. Most of it was a surprise to me as to what was happening. So I just showed up and I was just blown away. It was so incredibly amazing how they honored both the past and currently what's happening now in terms of our church and stuff. So that was just amazing. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm blown away. Like the years that we've been here, because I used to work at Life Church. I recently left, which is also crazy.
Yeah.
It's so wild to see just how fast the years have gone by, and just like you being there, and even just the whole story, which we'll get into all of that. But I'm really glad that you're here as a guest because, I mean, as I talked about in my testimony, like one of my key factors in having the relationship I have with the Lord now and just being so grounded in my faith has been my upbringing, which is so different from a lot of pastors' kids' experiences. So
Right.
for you to be the pastor parent and also just the pastor that you are, it's something I'm so excited to get into.
All right, let's do it.
Yes, let's get into it. So tell us about your testimony, just how you came to Christ, and what that was like for you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Jamaica, in a very Rastafarian home. My parents were on the cutting edge of reggae music and the birth of reggae music in Jamaica. So I was born in 1969, and reggae music was started in like mid 60s, right in that era, going up. So when I was born, my dad is a music producer, and my mom was an artist manager. They both used to manage artists, and they would produce music. So they were involved with Bob Marley. They were involved with Peter Tosh. Just Burning Spear. All of these very old reggae, iconic reggae artists that were just arising during the 70s. So we're very radical kind of family that was anti-society, anti-government, anti all of these things, right? And so thus my name. My name is Che, which is the name actually comes from a revolutionist who helped Fidel Castro overtake Cuba and also was working in Bolivia as well. And so very iconic person back in those days that would just be all about the people uprising and power to the people, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got my name, which can tell you kind of the mentality of where my parents were.
Yeah.
Um, they would
He'll be a revolutionary.
revolutionary. They didn't think for Christ, but they certainly thought revolutionary. And so there's a lot of anti-Babylon, right? That any kind of government system was termed Babylon, because during that time as well, you're also coming out of a Martin Luther King era in the U.S. that was happening. So there was a lot of that civil rights, a lot of black rights, a lot of just what the temperature was like during that season, and that's how I grew up. I grew up in the 70s when there's a lot of that kind of social unrest with that. And in Jamaica, we already had a majority black, majority our culture was more or less like the ones that we felt were the voice of the oppressed. So once again, with the rise of Bob Marley and different people, we're this voice of the oppressed, speaking to a South African type, apartheid situation, speaking to the civil rights of the of America. So for in that context, I grew up very far from church, very far from Christ. Christ was seen in our household like a white man's God. And so on our wall, a lot of people on their wall, when you walk into a Christian home, it would be like maybe the Last Supper, or maybe a picture of the cross or something. In our home, there was a big picture of Bob Marley, and there was a big picture of Haile Selassie, who was the emperor of Ethiopia. And so those were the two pictures on our wall that represented what our home stood for.
Yeah.
And my dad, interestingly enough, he grew up as the son of a preacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my grandfather was a lay pastor in the Methodist Church in deep rural Jamaica. And so my dad grew up knowing about Christ, knowing all of that. In fact, got saved when he was a teenager, but decided he was going to put away communion for weed. And so when I would come home from school in the afternoons, man, I got the original secondhand smoke before we even knew what that was. My wife says that's why my memory is so shot.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Is that what she
Yes.
attested
to? Your mother.
Oh,
and so original secondhand smoke. But there was always smoke in my house. There was always this mist, this it was always this going on. And so for me, when I grew up, nothing to do with Jesus, nothing to do with church, nothing. I was just so far from that. When I was a teenager, went through high school, and in graduating from high school, I was really bad at high school, really bad at academics. Just didn't have much hope when it came to the academic side of life. Thought I would end up in music as well, just because of my dad and his influence, and then just my own heart and desire. I wanted to maybe be a music engineer, and went to Canada to spend some time with my cousins in Canada that summer right after I graduated from high school. So I went to Toronto. I was there, and while there, my aunt Glenner, she has 4 sons. The youngest one was closer to my age. And I remember when I first landed, he said to me, "Hey, so did you bring anything from Jamaica?" And I knew what he meant. He meant, any weed, and that kind of thing. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I'd get arrested." Like, this is my first time traveling by myself. I was like, oh my, are you kidding me? But it was, I just saw like this big contrast between his lifestyle, which was, he was just more anxious, and just things going through like regular teenage things, but maybe a little darker than what I would have experienced in Jamaica. And then his eldest brother, who was Christian, he was solid, he was married, he was just filled with joy and peace, and it was, the contrast was just so apparent to me of what a lifestyle of Jesus looked like, versus someone who just didn't have that. And I felt in that moment, when I was that period, as I was watching that that my life was heading in one of two directions. Either
Mm.
I was going to just continue on the path I was on, which seemed to feel to me to just lead towards more and more darkness
Yeah.
in life, or I could make this choice and walk towards, well, this lighter, joyful, peaceful life.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was older than me and I saw the family he was raising, there was something that was so attractive about it. There's something
Mm-hmm.
that said, that's where I want to end up. It was
Mm-hmm.
different than my parents. My parents had gotten divorced. It was different than even their lifestyle was just so go, go, go. And it was so filled with all of this fame and fortune, but it felt
Mm-hmm.
so unfulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And here it was, I was seeing something that seemed so fulfilling, so calm, so peaceful, just so and so in at I went to church with them,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I was in this church service, and this one guy got up, and the pastor said to this small church, and the pastor said, "Oh, Brother John is here. After so many months, it was good to see you, Brother John. Why don't you, just tell us how you're doing?"
Mm-hmm.
So Brother John got up right in the middle of the service and said, "I want to thank all of you for praying for me. As you know, Katie died, 6 weeks ago, and so thank you for all your prayers. And then 2 weeks after she passed, lightning hit my chimney, and the whole thing broke down. And then he went through about three or four tragedies, and
Yeah.
at the end of it said, and I'm just so thankful to God for His grace," or something along that
Mm-hmm.
line. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there as someone who doesn't know Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking, this dude is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, why is he thankful to God
Mm-hmm.
when everything is wrong in his life?
Yeah.
And somehow that made such an impression on me, that someone could still keep a heart of gratitude in the middle of their worst season.
Mm-hmm.
And between what was happening with my cousin and what was happening in this guy's life, I said to my cousin one night, "Hey, I want to know Jesus." Well, he had this guy pray for me, this youth pastor, um, lead me to the Lord. And I put that in quotations
Mm-hmm.
because the guy said to me, "Hey, so I understand you want to get saved." I said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, well, um, go ahead and pray." So I said, "Okay, what do you mean?" He said, just talk to the Lord. And so I just did. And he said, "Okay, great." And
Um, I think
so that
someone
was
missed the
it. So
training
I walked
there.
I walked out of that like a little bit confused.
Yeah.
I didn't know exactly what that was, and
Yeah.
so ended up going back home that night. And my uncle says to me, "Hey, congratulations!" And I said, "What for?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Heard you gave your life to the Lord." I did. I guess, okay, thanks. I was thoroughly confused.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was try to live a good life.
Yeah.
I tried to, after that, go, okay, I'm going to be a Christian. I'm going to work at this. I'm going to make them, like, just try hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because came back to Jamaica and was at the airport waiting for my another uncle of mine to get me from the airport. Saw a girl who was also waiting for someone, and well, let's just say I didn't last very long trying to be a Christian. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was
Mm-hmm.
a bad attempt, um,
Mm-hmm.
but ended up meeting another girl at some point, and going to church with her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Went to church one Wednesday night. It was they were having some concert, and I went to the church. And as I'm sitting there listening to the music, I don't really care, hey, Christian music, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this person in the front dancing. Everyone else was sitting in the church except this one person. He's up, he's jumping, he's dancing, and someone beside him kept telling him, "Sit down, sit down, sit down." And I said, "Man, I know that guy. That guy looks familiar." And it was this dude. His name is Bing Angus, and Bing was a bully in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Bing was like 2 years ahead of me in high school. He was a bully. He was just somebody you didn't want to be around. He was mean. He was like just somebody you didn't want to cross paths with.
Mm-hmm.
And here it was, Bing was dancing to Christian music in church.
Mm-hmm.
What? That was
Mm-hmm.
like just amazing to me. And I remember looking at this and going, okay, God must be real.
Yeah.
Because if God can save Bing, he can save anybody. And that began that journey of curiosity for really what this whole Christian thing was about. And then one night, the kind of the final thing was one night I'm at church, and so I started going to the church. I started arguing with all the youth. The Bible is an ancient book. It's an old thing. It doesn't. It's not relevant for today. Blah blah blah. And one night, whilst this guy's sharing his testimony on the stage, I just felt the conviction of the Holy Spirit. I just couldn't sit any longer. Walked up to the front of the stage. I hear that there was a lady who prophesied over me while I was making that walk up the aisle. I don't remember because I didn't know what that was anyway. And then Pastor Franz Fletcher is the person who led me to the Lord that night. And yeah, I've been not, I wouldn't say walking with the Lord ever since. I had a backslidden situation and got back in Jesus, but that's pretty much how I came to know Jesus. Yeah. Wow. It's a long story.
No, I mean, I feel like it typically is or can be. I think it's so interesting in your case that it's really the fruit of other people's lives.
Yeah.
That's what drew you to the Lord. Like it wasn't as much, I guess, feeling the conviction or, that you're a sinner and you need a savior, but just like seeing the joy of the Lord and how that manifests in people's lives to be like, that's what I want my life to look like. And so I think that's also just an encouragement to people of like, how you live your life can do a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like I got a vision of what the preferred life looked like. Like this is what life could be. And I didn't have that before because for me, it was about popularity. For me, it was about, trying to get as much partying done or trying to get just more of the of just being out there and trying to get whatever fix I could to bring some semblance of joy. And here it was, these people just seemed to have it without trying to get it from something else. And so that became a major thing for me. Yeah.
Nice. I mean, that's very, very inspiring to know that your testimony does so much more than you think. Because you also don't know what darknesses or worries that other people are going through that you are like the solution to, showing what a solution is. That's really, really cool. So when you got saved, it being like a complete shift, I guess, in just your ideas of the world and what your life would look like, did you ever think you'd be a pastor?
No.
Like, how did you go from, I'm a Christian now, no more weed, no more partying, all that stuff, to I'm going to lead people?
Yeah. Wow. Wow. When I got saved, I was so radical. I was so on fire. And, but there's some things that God was doing in me and just showing the dissatisfaction I had when it came to, like I said, popularity or my fears of the future, because now I'd graduated from high school and I didn't have a future that was planned out, laid out, like what I thought everybody else did. How teenagers are. Everybody else has this, and so just that total lostness and lack of satisfaction with that. So when I came to Christ, it's like this light bulb came on. I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't everyone tell me about this before? Like this is crazy. I mean, I felt bad. I was 17 years old, and I felt like I can't believe I waited this long to get saved. I was just like totally upset. I was upset at the world, upset at God, upset at every, like, why didn't I mean, I can't believe. So I thought I was so far behind. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm 17. I'm so old.
Practically almost dead.
Crazy. So I just pressed in really hard because I felt like I needed to catch up. So I mean, I was in my word. I was praying. I was just ministering to people, like reaching out, evangelizing. I was just like on fire. Like I was on fire.
Yeah.
And other people seeing that, being one of them, same guy, said to me one day, "Hey, have you ever thought of going to Bible school?" I was like, "Bible school? What are you talking about?" And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Man, I'm going to Bible school right now, and we're about to go into the next semester. Man, you should check this out."
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was like, oh, "Okay, I guess so." He said, "Man, you want to grow? Bible school will make you grow." And
Mm-hmm.
boy, once again, because I felt so far behind,
Yeah.
I was like, "Absolutely." It's not like I had a whole future laid out anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
then that's what ended up happening. Is I went to Bible school in Montego Bay, Jamaica,
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean Christ for the Nations. So when
Yeah.
I went to Bible school, I was just like, oh man, this was amazing. I was just learning so much. I was
Mm-hmm.
growing so much. There was just so much involved. And, you had people who would pass through Bible school and prophesy over the
Mm-hmm.
students and that kind of thing. And so I'm sure somebody might have said something about leading church, but I was not into that. I wasn't planning to lead a church. I
Mm-hmm.
was just planning to learn as much as I could because I was just so far behind and I
Mm-hmm.
needed to catch up and I needed to get there. So in leaving Bible school, I never sought to do any none of that. I would minister, I would help with the youth, I'd speak at youth group,
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff. And a friend of mine named Chris Parker, he was in charge of our youth at the time, and he had gotten ill, and I had asked me to run the youth for about a year, and
Oh wow.
so yeah,
That's
and
a
so
big commitment.
yeah. I mean, it's not so much like he asked me, but he got
Mm-hmm.
sick. Pastor David, who was
Mm-hmm.
David Keene, asked me to take it on, and it just happened to be about a year long.
Gotcha.
That was happening, and so I started leading that, and in the middle of that, I started sensing that the Lord was calling me to maybe pastor,
Mm-hmm.
and there was an on fire part of me that felt like it was always a possibility, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't clear that that was what the Lord was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So even when it came to relationships, um, there was a conversation I would have with someone that just went something along the line of, "Hey, I just want you to know that the Lord may call me to be a pastor one day. So if that happens,
Yeah.
are you sure you can handle like being with a pastor?
Oh, that's so
Because we
interesting.
don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
where this will end up, but
Yeah.
it could.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
could. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that is because of something I heard in Bible school or something. But
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't necessarily feeling like God was calling me. I just
Mm-hmm.
like the possibility just
Mm-hmm.
existed, and it was
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was working. I was working. But my mom got saved after that, and so that was a whole radical thing because
Yeah.
she was addicted to crack cocaine and ended up in prison and then got saved. And when she was saved, just her whole life transformed. And so here it was. She was saved. Now I was just graduated from Bible school, and I'm now leading the youth ministry. All of this I felt the Lord saying to me, "Hey, I'm calling you to
Mm-hmm.
pastor." And I'm like, "Oh no, oh no." And no, I always said it was a possibility. So why am I having this resistance now?
Yeah.
Well, there was this insecurity that I carried
Mm.
in my heart. And the insecurity went something like this. People who are pastors had nothing else they were good enough at, why they ended up being pastors. It was bad. I don't know. Where did I
Jeez.
get that from? I
That's
don't
like the
know.
extreme, those who can't do teach. That's like a
Yes,
step further.
it was really, and I don't know where I bought this lie,
Yeah.
but there was this lie that I
Mm.
bought and I bought into. And I felt because of my struggles academically in high school
Mm.
that somehow the way people would view me if I
Mm.
went into ministry was because I wasn't good enough
Yeah.
academically to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this big lie in my head that just said, "God, if I end up in ministry, you know what they're going to say about me."
Mm.
Like what was it? I mean, I did really well at Bible school, but that was Bible school. You see,
Yeah.
I did really well. I was doing really well at the job that I was at, but that's not really academics. So I had all of
Mm-hmm.
these things. So I made a deal with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "God, send me to college. and let me study something other than ministry, something other than theology, something other than anything to do with kingdom work. Let me study something else, and then let me choose ministry over that thing. Because then I will be able to prove to myself
Yeah.
that I was good enough to do something, and that
Mm-hmm.
ministry was actually a choice, not a default.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And through just a series of miracles,
Mm-hmm.
ended up in Langley, British Columbia, at a school called Trinity Western University, where I studied psychology and communications. Planned to come back to Jamaica to do a Christian radio station or work in advertising or
Mm-hmm.
something along that that area. Ended up working in advertising in one of the biggest advertising firms in Jamaica at the time. Did amazingly well, until one day the Lord said, "Are you happy now?"
Yikes.
Okay, I guess I am.
Did you get that out of your
I
system?
got it out got it out of my system, and in that period, my Pastor David at the time, um, said to me, "Hey, I want you to." We I ended up working with the church as the official now youth pastor, and then ended up working with my dad for a couple of years because God had done some radical things in his life, and I felt like I needed to join him to do what was going on. And then my pastor said to me, "Hey, we want to plant a church in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, and we believe God has called you to lead that church."
And
And
that's across the island from where
that's yeah.
you were. Mm-hmm.
So Kingston is on the south coast,
Mm-hmm.
the southeastern coast of Jamaica. Ocho Rios is on the northeastern
Mm-hmm.
coast of
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. A little Jonah-ing
Yeah, some
there.
Jordan, but good,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
really helped me to just settle my heart that this
Mm-hmm.
wasn't I don't know. I guess for me it was I needed to prove that to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I mean, looking back, I think, yeah, I'm happy I went through that. I'm happy I did college. Happy I
Mm-hmm.
went through the process of the difficult work of college because it has helped me in terms of everything I have done in terms of my own pastoring and the diligence that it takes to
Mm-hmm.
do this. So I'm glad that I went through that. But you know, God is so full of grace.
Yeah,
He's
it
so
is very
kind
gracious. Mm-hmm.
that sometimes he'll allow us to walk away a certain way
Mm-hmm.
because of our own stubbornness and yet use it for our good and to bring us
Mm-hmm.
back to what he wants.
Totally. And I mean, I'm sure, yeah, like you said, it's helped, but I know you could have done it without it, but I think it does also add so much to it because pastoring is communications
Yep.
and speaking.
Yep.
And I think it adds a really cool flair to your pastoring because it's what some of the
Yeah.
things that I love about your pastoring is, you got your points. It's very memorable, and that comes from like speech construction and
Yeah.
all those things that you learn. So I think that's really cool that even in that, which also shows I think relationship with the Lord.
Mm.
It's not just like, you know, anything forceful, but it was a conversation and
Yeah.
the grace and
Yeah.
eventually was like, yeah, so back to my will and my way. you know. Um
Sure.
yeah, and so okay, so when you became a pastor, how did your upbringing inform what pastoring looked like to you? Like, did you have an image of pastors that you were maybe fighting against, or there was a pastor that you wanted to emulate, or just how did in your mind, outside of like it's people who aren't good at anything else, the character and the lifestyle of a pastor, how did you kind of form that for
Yeah.
yourself?
I think several people influenced the way I approach pastoring. Um, First, my parents. As much as they were far from God, had
Mm.
nothing to do with God. One of the things they did have, which was amazing to me, is that they were so well connected to different um, how do I say it? Just the wide variety of people from different walks of life that they would
Mm-hmm.
engage with, interact with, and value and honor.
Mm.
It didn't matter if you were the richest of the rich or the poorest of the poor.
Mm-hmm.
And for them, walking in the industry they were walking in, they were, here it is, this grassroots type, underground type music that then blew up on the world stage
Mm-hmm.
and became huge. So they were celebrities in
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica,
Mm-hmm.
but they they interacted and engaged with people who were just like from the inner city,
Mm-hmm.
just as passionately as people who were like from, who were the record label producers, or
Mm-hmm.
those, people
Mm-hmm.
from, overseas, who were like, coming to put money into this music. And
Mm-hmm.
there was this this idea of treating people a particular, like no matter who you were,
Yeah.
the honor, the value, the care that they would, put into people. So that
Mm-hmm.
really spoke to me, because for us as kids growing up, we slept in the inner city. We slept in, in really opulent places. We were just all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
and we learned to just value people for who people were. So they
Mm.
shaped the values in my
Oh.
household around that, really shaped my pastoring,
Mm-hmm.
where it didn't matter who it was. It was, I was going to love you,
Mm-hmm.
no matter
Mm-hmm.
what. So that really shaped me. My senior pastor, Pastor David Keene, he shaped just the way I communicated. He shaped a lot of the way that he valued what church was about. He was a guy, like in Jamaica, a lot of times church didn't start on time.
Mm-hmm.
Musicians were late, people were late.
Mm-hmm.
Church definitely didn't finish on time. What was on time
Mm-hmm.
church? It was like the Holy Spirit only moves longer.
Mm-hmm.
If we're over too early, then the Spirit wasn't
He's
there.
never
So
concise.
yep, yep. He's never concise. We never end on
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So he like was orderly. He brought order. Yet, and yet he was, guy that full of Holy Ghost. Like, lay hands on people. Do
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like worship was intense. Pastor David, and worship, his love for worship, his love for all of that, and yet he he just broke the mold in the Jamaica context at the time
Mm-hmm.
for what it looked like, what intense worship looked like, uh, flowing in the Spirit looked like, and yet honoring people's time looked like. It was
Mm-hmm.
this weird combination that was just so radical in our society.
Mm-hmm.
Any churches that were on time just was spiritless, and any
Mm-hmm.
churches that were spirit filled just went on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so here it was just like
Mm-hmm.
completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And so his way of doing ministries absolutely impacted how we did ministry. So when
Mm-hmm.
we started the church, like, it always started on time. I didn't care even if no musicians were there, we were going to start. I mean, it didn't matter. Everything
Mm-hmm.
was on time. Everything finished on time. We're filled with the Holy Spirit. It was a
Mm-hmm.
powerful thing. So between just this love right across the board, this
Yeah.
understanding how to do that part of ministry was amazing. So when I started, I had those things in mind, and then I was very, very influenced by um, Rick Warren and the Purpose Driven Church. I was
Mm-hmm.
very influenced by Nelson Searcy, and he's a church growth guy that really influenced a lot of the way I went about ministry. I was very influenced by Andy Stanley. So those three in particular, in terms of how to just think about church and reaching the lost,
Mm-hmm.
reaching people who are far from God,
Mm-hmm.
really, really influenced my life. So our church had a mission statement that was concise, that you could put on a t-shirt. We
Mm-hmm.
had, values, like, whoever heard of that? Having values
Mm-hmm.
as a church, and exactly what we expected from everyone for us to operate. We had like organizational structures. We're a small
Mm-hmm.
church, but we had the whole church
Mm-hmm.
broken up into these different departments and what structure looked like. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're all these things that we just went, hey, this is how we structure church for growth. and yet we have the freedom to allow the Holy Spirit to do what He wants to do. And so that my upbringing, as you know, coming back to that question, my upbringing influenced the way I went into ministry, and then all these other outside voices helped me to see ministry through a different prism of how to reach those that are far from God and how to bring them into something that felt or organized but free, structured but allowing God to do what God does. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool. It makes me think about in the Bible how Jesus ate with sinners because of their hearts. And so even though your parents were far from the Lord, they were still just so genuine in everything that they did.
Yeah.
To contrast with what a lot of people's experience with religion is just like people who aren't open to outsiders and only love in a certain context with rules. And so that's really great that you were able to even take that biblical concept of unconditional love, even though it didn't come from a biblical place.
Yeah, I felt like as a family, we were sometimes maybe ostracized by people who were Christians or were even the well-behaved citizens, you know, the good of society. Because once again, my parents were it was such a radical thing, this Rastafarian reggae, and so there was a kind of ostracizing of it because it was new and it was not a part of the general what society was. And so with that feeling, I sometimes felt like even the parents of my friends would almost warn their kids, hey, not to be, and look, I would warn them too if I were, but that's how it felt. And so for me, in a sense, watching my parents and how they loved everyone else, when I walked in that position, I didn't want people to feel the way I felt.
Yeah.
And that made a difference for sure. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And so while you started your church plant in Otarius is when you started having kids. Well, back a little bit. You got married.
Yeah, I got
to a woman
married.
who took, it was at the time you were pastoring.
No.
At any capacity?
Not at all. So not at all.
She was one of the ones who's like, yeah, I might be a pastor. And your mom was like,
she was good. Yeah, she was good with it. She was really good with it. I wonder if she's still good with it. No, I'm just kidding. No, she is. She's
30, great. Almost 30. Your 30th is this year.
30th is this year.
30 years later. That's amazing.
Yep.
So you got married, and by the time you're in Ochi, you're starting to have kids. And so you're basically a pastor's kid's kid. A pastor's kid who was away from Christ, who had a kid. My dad.
Right.
My grandfather,
I see what you're saying.
Right? Yeah. When you started having children, did you think through what it was like to raise kids as a pastor?
What a great question. So my pastor, there were like some things that happened with his kids while I was, a part of the youth group that really shook our church. And so there was that in the back of my mind as to how does a pastor raise kids without it becoming the stereotypical, oh, pastors' kids are bad, or pastors' kids do this, or pastors' kids do that, whatever it is. And so there was a part of me that went, oh man, how does that happen? A couple of things that happened to me along the way that helped me process this. Number one was when I was in college, my first year in college, I went to spend that Christmas because I didn't have anywhere to go. I was living in Jamaica. I was from Jamaica. I mean, Vancouver's on the other side of the world. So I ended up going to spend Christmas with a friend of mine, Christian family, the whole deal. And that was the first time I was exposed to what a Christian family, once again, could look like. So from me, these ideas of seeing a vision before me of what life could be really played a big role for me. And when I saw what this relationship could look like with this family, this friend, my friend Mike and his family, it just really made an impression on me that that's what I want my family to look like. Just
Mhm.
period.